Eric Bana says this at the end. Other people don't get it. We're not leaving anyone behind.
They won't understand. It's about the men next to you.
And part of me at the beginning is like, hey, you should have left Orlando Bloom behind. You know, the amount of people who wouldn't have died. This is the review of Black Hawk Down with my guy, Mikey the Godson. Mikey, how are you doing today?
I'm doing good. How are you?
I'm good. This was originally, guys, for context, Mikey was on, I believe it was episode 2 we did on Prey, the Predator reimagining, I would say, which I had a really good time watching. And as we were doing that, Mikey made his list, and there was 2 movies that I thought he'd put on his list, and he only put one of them on the list. That movie was Saving Private Ryan, which if you go into our archives, you can watch my review of Saving Private Ryan I did with my good friend Nye Green. And the other movie Mikey did not put on his list, Black Hawk Down.
Yes.
So today, I finally, after many months, finally watched Black Hawk Down. And I brought Mikey back on to talk about it. Starting off hot here, I definitely enjoyed Saving Private Ryan more, you know?
Yeah, a lot of people would definitely say that.
I definitely enjoyed it a lot more. I will say it seems like the winning combination for these types of movies back in the day, because they don't really seem to make war movies like this anymore. And when I say that, you can tell it's a high budget film directed by Ridley Scott. They have a who's who of actors in this film. It seemed like back in the day, whether it was Saving Private Ryan, Black Hawk Down, you know, I'm sure there's other ones for people who are more into war movies than me, where you see these casts and you're like, wow, like especially now looking at the cast, like you could see there were so many people who were like rising stars and, you know, hot actors at the time, and some of them made it and some of them didn't. Like Josh Hartnett had a prominent role in this film, and Josh Hartnett was one of the young guys when this came out. People would probably say that he was going to be the biggest of these guys who were, I wouldn't say unknown, but more climbing the ranks. And that really wasn't the case. I mean, you see very briefly, a lot of these guys have very brief roles. So Ewan McGregor, you see him in there. When I looked up the cast, Tom Hardy was in here, and apparently it's his credited role. I didn't even notice it was him, and he was actually credited as Thomas.
Yeah, he's super young and pretty skinny too, so it looks weird to see him.
Different. It threw me off. I didn't even realize it was him, and I Googled it, saw the picture. I was like, that's him? Like, I remember him, but I didn't know it was him. It just looked so different. Also, another guy like Josh Hartnett, who was kind of a hot prospect at the time, I'll say, who didn't really, you know, he's had a good career, but didn't quite pan out, was Eric Bana, who ended up becoming the Hulk later on. Like, he was in this. It's always funny seeing these movies that rely heavily on, like, you know, it's an American movie, you know, about war, stuff like that. And then there's so many foreigners playing Americans. I always find interesting. Another guy who I don't know too much he's been in since, but Tom Sizemore, having been Saving Private Ryan and Black Hawk Down, it just seems like this guy was made for war movies, Mikey.
Yeah, I think he was in another one too, but I can't remember because there's a lot of war movies.
Yeah, no, but he was in there, and I was just like, it almost felt good to see a familiar face, because when you think about it, it's kind of a similar plot line, just told very differently. Similar in the sense that they're trying to save their men and get out of there. You know, they go in this situation. It makes you wonder, based off how, I'm going to be honest, how fucked shit gets, you know, it makes you wonder how much they actually planned before they went in there. Oh, and I forgot to mention Orlando Bloom's in this too.
Yeah.
Very
briefly. And
very briefly.
The guy who plays Reed Richards in Fantastic Four, the original one.
That was him. There was a couple guys too who I noticed who were on TV shows as well later on.
The guy who plays Jamie Lannister as well. He was one of the Delta Squads.
Like I said, there's a lot of faces you recognize where you're like, oh yeah, that guy ended up going to. Even Jeremy Piven, he's the helicopter pilot, so he has like one line. The next time you see him, his leg's blown off, I believe, and he's dead, you know? So it's just the amount of like random cameos. And then there was a couple guys like higher ups. There was one guy who was in 24 for several seasons as Aaron Pearson, the show. I don't know his actual actor name, but it's just so many familiar faces. But yeah, the main premise, similar to Saving Private Ryan, is like they go in, they're trying to escape / leave no one behind, save their men. You know, so obviously in Ryan, they're going to get someone because they're ordered to, since everyone else in his family died, versus this, they're going in trying to take out a target, and then they end up being the targets.
Yeah, stuff kind of just goes sideways because they have 2 helicopters crash,
Right.
and they're like blocking off roads because they're trying to capture the leader. I can't remember his name, but
Of
one
the
of the war leaders. And then
yeah.
yeah, they get 2 Blackhawks down, and now they kind of they border off certain streets, and then they get captured, or not captured, but like enclosed in an area where they can't really escape because everyone's watching them, and if they do, hella people will die.
And the main reason that Black Hawk went down was because they were trying to save Orlando Bloom. You know,
Yeah,
they even say this later on. Eric Bana kind of says this at the end. Other people don't get it. We're not leaving anyone behind.
You're going back in? There's still men out there. When I go home, people ask me, "Hey, Hoot, why do you do it, man? Why? You some kind of war junkie?" I won't say a goddamn word. Why? They won't understand. They won't understand why we do it. They won't understand it's about the men next to you.
And part of me at the beginning is like, hey, you should have left Orlando Bloom behind. You know, the amount of people who wouldn't have died, and the amount of, like, you know, pain, anguish, like so many extra people died because of the fact they were trying to save Orlando Bloom, who I'm pretty sure they didn't even save. I don't, it's honestly, it's hard to tell. That's one thing about the movie that as a viewer, I get the fact that, like, it's a lot more fast than Private Ryan. It's a lot more frantic than Private Ryan because you're in an active war zone the whole time. In Ryan, there's certain parts where they're in combat.
There's like talking and stuff, or like or in combat.
More talking. There's a lot more, like, you know, the journey. There'll be moments frantic gun battle, but you also see how different warfare has changed between what the late 1930s, 1940s into the early, because that was supposed to take place, I believe, in 92, early 90s, sure, because former President Clinton is the one who sanctioned all this. And you just see how much more frantic warfare has gotten, how much crazier it is. And I think they do a good job in the movie of showing how frantic, I keep missaying that, frantic warfare is, and how crazy things can get so quickly at the drop of a bucket or whatever they say. It just, things turn sideways so quick. But because of that franticness, we kind of talked about this off camera as well. I found it hard to keep up with the characters who weren't Tom Sizemore or Josh Hartnett. You know, pretty much every other character. It's like, it's really hard in this movie to remember characters' names.
A lot of names, yeah. There's a lot going on because it's like almost all action.
Well, not just that. There's that, but there's also so many people who have speaking roles who are soldiers, you know, who go in and out, and some of them die quickly. And it just shows, like, you know, as well trained as these guys are, it's just, they really don't, you know, once you go in there, as good of a plan as it could be, everything can change at the drop of a hat. You know, everything can change very quickly. The one scene I really remember, they saved the one guy from the helicopter who looked like he had become crippled. And this guy pretty much has a gun, and they place him there, and they're like, just keep shooting. And he can't move, and he's just trying to shoot. And
his leg's broken.
Try to do whatever he can to survive. And there's that moment where he runs out of bullets as his comrades are getting killed, and everyone around him who's supposed to be protecting him is dying.
Bordy's gone, man. I'll be outside. Good luck.
And he's just left for a mob, and he pulls out the picture of his wife and daughter, and even as he thinks he's going to die and he thinks they're all just going to take him, he dropped the picture. He's still reaching for that picture. Regardless, because it's just the one thing at this point, it's all he has is that picture.
He's kind of just sitting there helpless, and he's like, damn,
helpless.
Wish I could do something, but it's just, and it showed that with like a couple of things too, but yeah, it's just one of those situations where you look at, you're like, holy shit, like, I just don't want to be in this situation. Obviously no one would, but it just makes you think. It's just really crazy because it's kind of like that the whole way through the movie, where you're like, just so much shit happens, you're like, oh my gosh, like, I can't even imagine because I don't know like how obviously accurate it is like to real life, but you can kind of just get the picture of it, and it's just it's a lot. I think it's based off a book too, if I'm not
It's based off a
mistaken.
true story. It's
Yeah.
based off a true story. It's a solid movie. I'm surprised how talked up it is. Saving Private Ryan's one of those movies where like I understand why people like this. This is a really
Mhm.
well done movie. You get to connect with all the characters more of a definitive, I guess I would say, conclusion, if that makes sense. Maybe Black Hawk Down's just more accurate because of the fact that it's more hectic, more frantic. I don't even think I believe at the end of the movie they said that guy who got captured was released like 10 or 11
Yeah,
days.
11 days after.
Those guys in Black Hawk Down, they eventually get out alive. They eventually, I don't know if you could really say they reach their goals. More power to people who serve and all that. But and we appreciate your service. I definitely do not want to be disrespectful. It's just, I can't imagine watching that and being like, I want to join this, like
Yeah,
movies like that. It's just like, man, like this looks terrible. Like
yeah,
being in the shit like that. And, it's just, it takes a special type of person. So if you're watching, you serve, we appreciate you guys, didn't want to be rude or anything. It's just so graphic. I can't imagine running headfirst in that. So shout out Sam, who's serving in the Navy, and my
yes,
friend Denai, who's formerly of the Army. We salute you guys.
yes, we do.
It made me also wonder, like, is most good war movies like rescue missions, or end up being rescue missions? It seems like, obviously they went in to kill the leader of the, lack of a better word, Somali terrorists, or the people who they perceive bad. Again, I kind of wish, and maybe that's also because World War II is a lot more well known, so it's a lot easier to put some pieces together when you're watching it versus watching this, and it's like, I don't know a lot about this event in real life outside of the movie, so it's kind
Yeah,
of harder to connect to versus, people know about D-Day, people know, like World War II is obviously probably the most well documented, or one of the most well documented wars ever. So it's a lot easier to connect with it, given I had two grandfathers who served as well. So
hmm
having talked to them and found out what they felt and their experiences to an extent from what they were willing to share.
and probably because there's movies that also interpret those specific situations like multiple times. Like
Oh,
there's not like a lot of movies that interpret this specific situation in Black Hawk Down. There's just this one. Whereas like World War II, there's a lot of stories focused around certain events that were very popular or known.
yeah, no, that's very valid. It's a lot more of a it's something where you watch it and you almost have to Google it to research a bit more,
Yeah.
so
Mm.
you know exactly what happened. Because honestly, I'm gonna have to do probably 30 minutes of just research going through it to figure out exactly everything that what happened.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, a lot of these war movies, it seemed like, at least in the early 2000s, 90s, 80s, a lot of these movies, it's like great young cast with some people who are rising stars and other people who became stars later on. Great soundtrack.
It had some pretty cool shots too.
Yeah, I would
Um,
say great directors
yeah.
usually tend to be. I mean, Spielberg did Saving Private Ryan. You have Ridley Scott here. You can even go back to like, I still haven't seen Platoon, but Platoon, and also going into like Apocalypse Now as well.
Mhm.
It seems to be all those kind of hit those marks. I also feel like movies like that are going to be less likely to be made now, just because it seemed like war movies have much higher budgets,
Yeah.
really do it
Mhm.
nowadays in the streaming area. People don't really like spending as much on that type of stuff. I mean, obviously Oppenheimer to an extent, but Oppenheimer's a war movie, but it's not. Oh,
Takes place like behind the scenes or
yeah,
like
it's different.
at another point of it. Yeah.
It's different. Yeah, it's not like, I actually haven't seen that either, but I know the
I'd
stories
recommend it.
different.
It's
Yeah, no,
pretty
I've
good.
heard great things. Well, the thing is, Mikey, now with the podcast too, I'm almost inclined not to watch anything because
Yeah.
I'd
Yeah.
rather like save it for this. You know what I mean? It's
Yeah.
like, do you want to watch that? And it's like, do you want to talk about it on the podcast? And then I can
Yeah.
watch it.
And avoiding spoilers too for like new movies coming out now. But
Oh yeah, everything
yeah.
gets spoiled so quickly.
Yeah, it's literally like a day day after. I'm like, this
Yeah,
is
I think I
ridiculous.
told you that story about that one kid. Because I used to play Grand Theft Auto with this family on PlayStation, and there was this one kid in the group who was like 14 or 15. He somehow found me on Instagram, which was really weird because I never told him my Instagram handle. So I had a different name on there, so I don't know how he found me, but he found me.
That's wild.
Which was weird, right? And then he literally did a post, which was an Apple Note, and it was like, "Here's the spoiler for Infinity Wars," and he literally listed every single spoiler in Infinity Wars, and it's like, dude, like, you know, what are you doing nowadays? Movies and TV shows, it's so like if you don't watch something the day it comes out, and you go on social media, it'll be ruined. Like just like wrestling, you know, when I go, if I don't watch Raw or SmackDown, I forget, and I go on Twitter or a pay-per-view, I'm gonna find out what happened very quickly. You're gonna,
and it's so annoying.
Yeah, no, sometimes it's like, man, I gotta watch this when it comes out, or just go radio silent, or you know, I'm never
just stay off social media, and it just sucks because it's like, why are you expecting people to just need to watch this the day it comes out?
I haven't seen this as much recently, but back in the day, a lot of these movies used to have those, like, especially like movies that took place abroad and other stuff. There's a couple I could think of that took place in America where the camera looked kind of yellowish, greenish. It had this kind of tint going the whole time.
Oh, yeah.
The only American movie off the top of my head, I mean, you know, Fight Club kind of had a little bit of that going on a lot. And then like this one movie that I think pretty underrated called Phone Booth, which I really enjoyed, with Kiefer Sutherland and Colin Farrell and Forrest Whitaker, was pretty good, but it had that similar tint. Which
it looks like a filter or something.
Yeah, I really enjoyed that. It kind of added a little something to it. I can't tell if it makes it more dated, but they seem to do it a lot when they're like abroad, you know, or international. You know, it's like, oh, everything over here is yellowish green. Not that this is any more graphic than any of them, but again, another very graphic movie. That guy's thumb pretty much getting shot off was pretty wild. Just the various deaths you see throughout the movie, it's constant. And again,
the guy with the RPG going through his stomach.
Yeah,
was like
pretty wild.
I was just like, or the guy just getting blown up in half. I'm like, holy shit! Like,
yeah,
you watch it and you're like, you kind of like look away for a second, but it's because they do such a good job making it look so brutal.
Contrast, they'll have like Sizemore or some of the other guys talking to the people who are in charge on base or in the sky, being like, hey, we got to get out of here. And it's like, oh yeah, you're gonna have to turn around and go through all that shit. It's like, bro,
I see the crash directly ahead.
All I see is the roadblock.
All right, I'll have to figure out another way.
Like, I was like, who's planning this, man? Like, dude, we're gonna die that way. It's like, well, you got to go that way, and then they turn around, and dudes both get shot. You know?
Yeah, he was going through it in the movie. That man was just going through it.
We need you to turn around and head back to Halwadig.
Shit me! We just came through there! There's gotta be a better route!
It's the info I'm getting from JOC. You need to turn around and head back.
Roger that! Roger that! I cannot believe this shit!
Yeah, I gotta look at what else Tom Sizemore did, because he killed it in both of these roles, and it doesn't seem like he got a ton after it. Yeah, I literally wrote one of my things, Tom Sizemore decided to go back in after he left. Total badass, you know?
Yeah.
Between 10th Mountain and UM, you got enough personnel, okay?
Danny, you guys do not have to go back out again.
Another note, I was like, maybe stop sending helicopters, you know? Like, they kept getting shot down. It's like, maybe it's a sign. Not
yeah. Oh man.
Again, a lot of the planning just leaves a lot to be desired, you know, and a lot of stories I've heard from people who've served too in regards to stuff like that makes me pretty concerned about.
And it's crazy how how much things can just go sideways after like one incident of like the whole thing with Blackburn. Like, he fell out of the helicopter. That's where it really led to everything.
Oh yeah.
I'm just like, dude.
Instead of just letting him go, they went down, and then you know, I don't even remember seeing Blackburn again.
He was at the end, but I think he might have been paralyzed because he still had the neck brace on. but his eyes were open. So I think he was either paralyzed or he was just like unconscious or something. But yeah,
It's just crazy that one scene with Orlando Bloom and Ewan McGregor, and you're like,
yeah.
man, this Star Wars
Pirates of the Caribbean.
Pirates of the Caribbean going over slash what was it? Wasn't he like in the Christopher Robin movie too? You know?
Oh yeah, Ewan McGregor was. Yeah, he was Christopher Robin.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I forgot. Did this came out after Phantom Menace or before?
Phantom Menace was
Phantom Menace, I think, was
this.
like '90s, so this probably after.
Yeah, this was. I think this was after, like a couple years after.
Yeah, so just
Because Ewan looks a little older, but yeah, he's still young.
Yeah, there was a random guy too. I think it was. I want to say his name was Garcia, the dude at the end who's like, "I'm ready to go back in." You remember him, the guy?
Yeah.
I'm glad without me.
Ruiz. Yeah.
Excuse me. I'm pretty sure he was on that show Without a Trace. You know,
I don't think I've seen that, but
yeah, like he's been in a couple like random TV shows. There's a couple guys where I'm just like I said, there's a lot of recognizable faces.
yeah, you kind of make them out, and you're like, I feel like I know where I've seen this guy, but
Yeah,
a lot of them, like after this, like I mean, what's his name? Josh Hartnett. I don't know what really he's been in. I mean, recently he was in the movie Trap with like from M Night Shyamalan, but like other than that, I can't really think of too much stuff that he's like been in after this.
Josh Hartnett.
Yeah,
He was in
at least that I've seen. But
Dude, well, that you've seen, that's a different question. But
yeah, that's true.
Hartnett was like a really hot prospect for a while in Hollywood. Like he had that movie Hollywood Homicide with Harrison Ford.
Yeah.
In Sin City briefly. He's in the intro scene of Sin City. I don't know if you remember that. You know, where he's kind of narrating and that girl.
Oh yeah, yes.
And yeah, that's a great scene. Anyways, and outside of that, I mean, he's definitely was in some other stuff, but nothing really like.
I feel like nothing memorable, but
this is super random. He feels like Channing Tatum before Channing Tatum, if that makes sense. Whereas them are guys who just got a lot of opportunity, and I mean, Channing kind of, I don't know. I guess Channing kind of got above that because he had his Magic Mike moment, and
yeah,
stuff like that. But he also, you know, both of them were kind of guys who were just like presumed to be Hollywood guys who just kept getting opportunities. And I don't really know. I know Josh has been doing stuff. I think he had a TV show not too long ago on Showtime. He's still active, but he's just, you know, where I thought he would be given how they were booking him for a while, booking like he's a wrestler.
Yeah.
In movies and TV shows, I thought he was going to be a really big star. And all these other guys who are big names who ended up not really having as big of a role in this. Another random note, I love how anytime it feels like there's a main character who's talking to someone else and he's like, you know, they're injured and they're like, you're going to make it, buddy. They never make it.
Yeah, and they kind of make it obvious in a way because they're just like, they're trying really hard to tell him like, yeah, you're good, dude. Like, keeping them. And then you clearly pan to them and they're just bleeding out. I'm like, dude, like,
yeah,
it's wraps.
You literally put his whole hand in him trying to get out a bullet.
Yeah, that was brutal.
Yeah,
so,
like
you just knew like he's not gonna survive.
I'm like, dude, you need a medevac. Like they're not even willing to come in to give you a helicopter to get you out when you're not injured. Why do you think they're coming in with the helicopter to get you injured now, bro?
Yeah,
happen.
It's not worth it.
But yeah, I would say for me, like I'd watch it again after seeing it once. I might have more appreciation for it, but I probably wouldn't go out of my way. I would say overall, like it was good, but it's not. If I was going to watch a more war movie, I'd rather watch Private Ryan.
That has way more story to it.
Yeah,
and Tom Hanks just does an incredible job.
Well, I'd say I just found it a lot harder to connect with the characters in this movie because they never really like when you're watching Ryan. You know, you find out what Tom Hanks did beforehand. You find out more about everyone in his little group as they go across. Like, find out more about the characters' personalities, even if you don't know their full backstory. At least you know like their personalities and other stuff like that. And it was a lot harder to connect with people because they don't really have any of that background stuff. It's kind of like you show up, you're in Somalia, and then now it's like we're going after this one general, and then shit immediately hits the fan, you know?
Yeah.
So I found it a lot harder to connect with the characters in this movie. So if I had to give it a scale 1 to 10, I'd probably if I was generous, I guess I'd say 7, where it's like it's solid, but it's just not my cup of tea, and
Yeah,
just
for me, it's not. For me, I don't think it's a 10, but it's definitely one of the first war movies I've just watched. I think it was the first one I've ever watched, so that's why I kind of like it. But and because of all the people in it too, kind of just gets you into it. But I've definitely seen better war movies, like Saving Private Ryan. I would give like a 9 or a 10.
yeah, maybe it's unfair. I mean, just because the only other war movie I've done on this podcast is Private Ryan, and it's one
Mhm.
war movie I've watched most recently. So it's
Yeah.
probably not fair and doing it disservice to compare it to Private Ryan. It's just my frame of
Mhm.
reference right now for what I have. For me, the war movies I kind of enjoyed more were like, I need to rewatch this, but as a kid, I used to love Three Kings with
I
George
don't
Clooney
think I've seen that.
and Ice Cube. Yeah, but it's more of like, it's not really about the battle stuff. It's more like, people kind of going on a side quest when
Mm.
they were
Okay.
out there and finding some other stuff. It wasn't necessarily just about like in the moment battles.
Right.
I could say also The Patriot's a war movie because it has to do about the American Revolution with Mel Gibson, and I like
Mhm.
that movie a lot too. But having said that, there's a lot more exposition where it's like you find out it's easier to connect to the characters because they give you an opportunity to connect to the characters. I feel like
Yeah.
in the movie you don't really get the opportunity as much, besides like that one point again where I mentioned the guy holding the picture of his family,
Mhm.
the little picture. Besides that, you don't really, to me, I didn't really get a moment or a chance to really connect with any of these guys.
Yeah, and who knows if that was even the point of it too. But yeah, I would definitely agree because you kind of like there's a bunch of like names thrown out there that you people know, but you don't really like see. Like you said, they get like small screen time, so you
Yeah,
don't have enough time to connect with them. But
yeah, it's really hard to even remember characters' names and stuff, because they just
yeah, because they're constantly saying their names, or you're just like trying to remember like, okay, who's that again?
and
But
you're constantly between
and
characters back and forth.
yeah,
Jazz.
yeah, because they were splitting between like 3 different groups that were like split up, all of them with different people in it. And you only see for like a little bit of a time. But I mean, one of the people that you connect with more is like Ewan McGregor's character because he's kind of like went between 2 different groups. But other than that, like Tom Hardy's just there as a character. The guy who I'm trying to remember his name. He played Draco's dad, but uh, the
Oh,
bald guy.
the guy who played Draco's dad's in this.
Yeah, he was the I'm trying to remember his name, but yeah, he was the bald guy.
It's funny because Draco's dad's actually in The Patriot too.
Oh, really? Okay.
He plays a British person.
Yeah, I'm blanking on his name. Jason something.
You're good, man. You're good. I
But
don't know his name either. I just remember his Draco's dad slash
yeah, yeah,
who.
Lucius Malfoy.
I was gonna say what he did in The Patriot, but I don't want to ruin it for you if you actually want to watch it.
Yeah, I haven't seen it yet. So
Yeah, I try not to actively ruin movies for people if I can help it, guys. Any final parting thoughts on Black Hawk Down while we're here?
yeah, I would kind of agree. It's that's where I would rank it to more in like the 6-7 area. Just because it's mainly just compact of just action. There's not like this. There's a story there, but it's not like as hard hitting. But I would definitely recommend it to people, but nothing where I'm like, dude, you like need to see this. Like it's not a need to watch, but it's for sure like if you like war movies, it's one that you should definitely watch. But
Yeah,
um,
I got people were telling me about this for years, so I definitely was pretty hyped. Maybe my expectations were too high.
it was like one of those first war movies, or the first one I got into, and that's why I really like it. Because I try to tell people, I'm like, you should definitely check this out. But if you don't like it, I'm not gonna like obviously hate you for not liking it. But
Yeah, well, sentimental movies will get a couple extra points. You know what I mean?
mhm,
Like
yeah,
when I watch, people laugh at me when I say Commando is my favorite Arnold movie, and I'm like, well, I
it's a good
probably
movie.
it's a good movie, and I probably add 1 or 2 extra points just because of
Mhm,
the fact that it's like one of the first Arnold movies I just watched
yeah.
consistently.
And that's why I kind of give a little more points to Black Hawk Down because it was the first one I've ever watched. So
Yeah, exactly that. Like Beverly Hills Cop for me, even
yeah,
movies that you have lower expectations, like Hot Rod. When I went to go see that, I had super low expectations,
It's
and
such
I
a
didn't
good
think it
movie.
was going to be good. And then because my expectations were so low, it exceeded them. I think this might have suffered from the other one where my expectations were maybe too high,
Mhm.
and then watching it, it was a little bit not really what I expected.
Yeah, and that's completely understanding too. Yeah.
So just recapping, guys, overall solid. I wish I could have connected to the characters a bit more. Maybe it's just me being ADD. But I enjoyed it. Probably wouldn't watch again, maybe one more time just to get more context. And I think those were your final thoughts, Mikey. So
Yeah.
Just wanted to thank you again for being on the pod. Maybe we'll do this again sometime. Who knows?
Of course.
And,
I'm still working on some lists of
ooh.
some movies. So,
well, guys, we'll definitely have to get into that. Want to thank you all for watching, listening, all that jazz. If you haven't already, check out the archives on our YouTube and listen to the podcast on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, wherever podcasts are found. We're on there. You can check all the movies we've done already. Cop a hoodie. Look at us both Schwayed out. You love to see it, guys. Very rare. Both of us Schwayed out. Go cop a hoodie. Support my small business if you can. I appreciate you.
All I know is green, but